Lily moved through the grand hall, her footsteps silent against the marble floor. The Cole family's annual charity gala, a night for the rich to sip champagne and talk about generosity while people like her refilled their glasses. But this night felt heavier. Maybe it was because of Ethan's voice, that same low, confident tone that once made her heart race. She caught a glimpse of him near the stage, smiling at investors and laughing like life had never hurt him. His laughter still carried that warmth she used to love. But tonight, it didn't reach her. "Table 6 needs more drinks," her supervisor whispered. She nodded, gripping the tray tighter, pretending she didn't see the way people's eyes passed over her like she didn't exist. Years ago, she'd walked these same halls in a silk dress beside Ethan, back when love was easy and promises were real. Now she wore the uniform of someone he wouldn't recognize. As she passed the long banquet table, Ethan's laughter grew louder. "She used to dream so big," he said, his tone laced with irony. "Now she probably works in some tiny cafe." The words sliced through the music like broken glass. The group chuckled, unaware that the she in his story was standing just a few feet away, balancing glasses with shaking hands. Her chest tightened. The tray wobbled. One glass slipped, shattered against the marble. The sound turned every head. Ethan froze. Their eyes met. Time stopped. He blinked, realization dawning. Too late. "Lily," he whispered. Her throat ached, but she forced out the words. "Excuse me, sir." And she walked away. The whispers followed her like ghosts. Outside, beneath the soft hum of city lights, Lily took a deep breath. Tears stung her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She wouldn't give the night that power. She told herself it didn't matter, that she had outgrown this pain. But her hands still trembled. Her heart still remembered. If you were there in that moment, what would you have done? Be honest, comment your answer below. And if words fail you, just hit like to prove that compassion still matters. She took a seat on the back steps, away from the music, letting the cold air cool her burning face. "Lily," a soft voice came. She looked up. Grace, an older waitress with kind eyes, offered her a napkin. "Don't mind them, honey. The rich forget they're human sometimes." Lily managed a weak smile. "It's just, hearing him laugh like that. It hurt." Grace sighed, sitting beside her. Maybe he forgot who he was too. That night, while the gala carried on inside, Lily sat outside thinking about how easily people forget the ones who once stood beside them. She promised herself she wouldn't let bitterness own her. Inside, Ethan stood frozen among his family, guilt spreading through him like poison. He hadn't meant for her to hear. He hadn't meant half the words he said. But deep down, maybe he had. He looked toward the empty hallway where she'd disappeared and realized something. He'd become the kind of man she would never love again. The laughter around him felt suddenly hollow. The applause that followed the speeches sounded distant. And when his mother placed a hand on his arm and said, "You've made us proud tonight," Ethan's chest tightened. Because for the first time in years, he didn't feel proud at all. Outside, Lily looked up at the stars and whispered, "One day, I'll make them remember who I am, not because I loved them, but because I learned to love myself." Her breath fogged in the cold night. A small, determined smile curved on her lips. She stood up and walked toward the bus stop, her reflection glimmering faintly in the glass doors as if her old self was watching her go. And somewhere behind her, Ethan turned toward that same door, and saw only the space where she'd been. The bus rumbled through the midnight streets, its windows reflecting the city's blurred lights. Lily sat by the window, clutching her apron in her lap like it held the last pieces of her dignity. She tried to steady her breathing, but her mind wouldn't stop replaying Ethan's laughter, that careless tone, those words meant to impress his circle. It wasn't just humiliation, it was history collapsing in her chest. The boy she once believed in had become the man who turned her into a story to entertain guests. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "You're not that girl anymore." But memories rarely listen. Rain began to tap against the glass, soft at first, then harder, like the sky wanted to help her cry. She thought back to the time they first met. She had been working at a small bookstore near the university. He'd walked in looking for a gift for his mother. He was polite, nervous even, asking her opinion on poetry books. She remembered how his laughter had been gentle back then, not cruel. How he used to read to her under flickering streetlights, saying things like, "If you ever fall, I'll be the one to catch you." She smiled bitterly. "Guess you let go first." The bus stopped. She stepped off near her small apartment, peeling paint, flickering hallway lights, the faint smell of coffee from a late-night cafe below. Inside, she changed out of her uniform and sat by the window, hugging her knees. Her phone buzzed. A message from Grace. "Don't let tonight break you. Some storms come only to wash the dust away." Lily stared at it for a long time, then replied, "Thank you." She turned off the light, but sleep didn't come. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard him again, laughing. Morning came quietly. The city outside was already alive with horns and footsteps. She forced herself up, made coffee, and sat by her small desk. Bills lay scattered. Her rent was due next week. The catering job had been her only extra shift. She took a deep breath. "Keep moving," she told herself. "You always have." That afternoon, she returned to her regular cafe job. The familiar scent of roasted beans calmed her heart. Her co-worker, Ava, waved from behind the counter. "Rough night?" "You could say that," Lily murmured. Ava leaned in. "You okay?" Lily hesitated, then smiled faintly. "I will be." Ava nodded. "Good. Because we've got a surprise customer today." Before Lily could ask, the bell above the door chimed. Her heart nearly stopped. Ethan stood there, dressed in a grey coat, holding a bouquet of white lilies, ironic, almost cruel in its beauty. Their eyes met. Neither spoke. He stepped closer, his voice low. "Can we talk?" She straightened. "About what? The part where you humiliated me, or the part where you pretended you didn't know me?" He flinched. "I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," she interrupted softly. "You meant every word. Because it made them laugh." The cafe fell silent. Only the sound of the coffee machine hissed in the background. Ethan lowered his gaze. "You're right. I messed up. I was trying to fit into their world, and I forgot what it cost." She folded her arms. "And what do you think it cost me?" He looked up, eyes clouded. "Everything I should have protected." Her hands trembled, but she didn't let the tears fall this time. "You can't fix people just because guilt is eating you alive." "I know," he said quietly. "But can I at least say I'm sorry?" She didn't answer. She turned away, busying herself behind the counter. Ava whispered, "That's him, isn't it?" Lily nodded slowly. "Yes. That's him." "Are you going to forgive him?" "I don't know," Lily said softly. "But I'm going to live like I already have." Have you ever had someone help you when no one else would? Write yes and tell me their name. Maybe gratitude can travel further than we think. Ethan left the cafe after a long silence, setting the bouquet on the counter. Lily stared at it for a moment, then placed the flowers in a jar near the window. They looked too alive for what she felt inside. But as sunlight caught the petals, something inside her shifted. Not forgiveness, not yet, but peace trying to find its way in. That night, when she closed the cafe alone, she whispered to the empty room, "I'm not invisible anymore." And outside, across the street, Ethan watched her silhouette through the window, the same girl he once knew, now stronger, quieter, and out of his reach. Days passed, but the memory of that encounter lingered like the scent of spilled coffee, faint but impossible to ignore. Every morning when Lily walked into the cafe, her eyes unconsciously drifted to the window where those lilies still bloomed. She watered them without meaning to, though she told herself she'd throw them away tomorrow. Tomorrow never came. Ethan didn't show up again for a week, and for that, she was thankful. Or maybe disappointed. It was hard to tell the difference anymore. One rainy afternoon, she stood by the counter watching drops race down the glass. The sky was heavy and grey, the kind of weather that made old emotions crawl back. A customer's laughter at a corner table reminded her too much of his, bright, careless, full of privilege. She looked away. Grace visited during her break, umbrella in hand. Still thinking about him? Lily gave a small shrug. Not really. Just about everything. Grace smiled softly. You can't heal in the same place you were broken, darling. Maybe it's time to chase something new. That night, after closing, Lily pulled out her sketchbook, something she hadn't touched in years. Before love and heartbreak and bills, she used to paint. Her dream was to open a small art studio one day, filled with soft music and second chances. She smiled faintly, brushing dust off the cover. Maybe it wasn't too late. She started sketching again, shaky lines at first, then steadier. Her hands remembered what her heart had forgotten. The next morning, the cafe door chimed again. And there he was. Ethan, rain-soaked, holding 2 cups of coffee instead of flowers. "I know you don't want to see me," he said gently. "But can we talk somewhere quiet?" Lily hesitated, then nodded toward an empty corner. 5 minutes. He sat down, setting the coffee between them. "I didn't come to defend myself," he began. "I came to tell you I saw the girl I used to love walk away, and I realized I never really knew her strength." Lily's jaw tightened. Strength doesn't come from being hurt. It comes from surviving people who thought they could break you. He looked down. "I deserve that." "Maybe," she whispered. "But what are you really sorry for, hurting me, or being caught?" His silence answered for him. She leaned back, folding her arms. "You can't say what you said, Ethan. And I can't hear it. But I hope you mean your apology, for your own peace, not mine." He exhaled shakily. "You always had a way of seeing straight through me." "That's what happens when you love someone too deeply," she said. "You memorize their lies before their truths." For a long moment, neither spoke. The rain outside softened into a drizzle, the kind that felt like forgiveness waiting to fall. He finally said, "I told my family what I did. My mother was furious. My father called me a fool. They're right. But none of that fixes anything." Lily looked at him, really looked at him, and saw not the boy she once loved, but a man carrying the weight of his own choices. And for the first time, she didn't feel small in front of him. She felt whole. She stood. "I hope you find the version of yourself you can live with. Goodbye, Ethan." He opened his mouth, but no words came. She walked away, her steps steady, her heart quieter. Outside, the world smelled of wet earth and renewal. She tilted her face toward the rain and let a few drops touch her cheeks like tiny absolutions. "Now it's your turn. Share one small good thing you did recently. Write it below so others remember that humanity still lives. Your story might light someone's path tonight." That evening, Lily sat at her desk again, painting a new piece, a woman standing in rainlight, her reflection brighter than her shadow. She signed it with a simple word, hope. When she posted the painting online, she didn't expect the response. Comments flooded in, strangers sharing their stories of heartbreak and healing. Her art was reaching people in ways her words never could. A message appeared in her inbox from a local gallery owner, "Your work has soul. Would you like to exhibit next month?" Lily covered her mouth, tears spilling freely this time. Not from pain, from disbelief. She whispered to the empty room, "Maybe pain really can bloom into purpose." And across town, Ethan sat in his car outside the same cafe, watching the rain blur the world. On the passenger seat lay a small sketchbook, one she'd once given him years ago. He opened it for the first time in years. Inside, written on the first page, were words he'd never forgotten, "Be kind to those who believe in you." His eyes stung as he whispered, "I wasn't." The gallery smelled faintly of fresh paint and polished wood. A low hum of conversation filled the air, people drifting between canvases that whispered stories in color and light. Lily stood near the back, her heart pounding like it wanted to run away. Her painting, Rainlight Woman, hung in the center wall under a warm spotlight. The same painting she'd made the night she finally let Ethan go. She hadn't told anyone it was hers, not even Grace. She just wanted to watch, quietly, to see if the world could feel what she felt without knowing her name. And to her surprise, they did. Strangers stopped in front of it and fell silent, their eyes softening as if remembering something personal. A young couple held hands a little tighter. An older man blinked fast, pretending it was just dust in his eye. Lily smiled faintly, her throat thick with quiet pride. Grace appeared beside her, a bright grin lighting her face. "You did it, sweetheart. They love your work." Lily swallowed hard. "It doesn't even have my name on it." "Doesn't need to," Grace said. "Your heart signed it." For the first time in years, Lily believed that maybe pain could turn into beauty after all. But as the evening went on, she felt a shadow in the crowd. That familiar presence, hesitant, restless. She turned and saw him. Ethan. Standing across the room, watching Rainlight Woman like it was telling him a truth he wasn't ready to face. Their eyes met for just a second. He didn't approach this time. Maybe he finally understood that some apologies are better left in silence. Still, something in his expression stopped her heart. Regret, not the kind born of guilt, but of love remembered too late. He moved closer, careful, as though the floor might shatter beneath him. "It's beautiful," he whispered when he reached her. She didn't answer. "Did you paint it?" he asked softly. Her lips curved into a small, calm smile. "Does it matter?" He looked back at the canvas, where rain met sunlight on a faceless woman's skin. "Yeah," he murmured. "It does. Because it feels like you." She didn't deny it. The silence that followed was different from all the others they'd shared, gentler, not empty. He took a slow breath. "I wish I could undo that night." "You can't," she said simply. "But you can remember it. And maybe that's enough." He nodded. "It is." For the first time, she didn't feel anger rise when he spoke. She felt closure, a quiet end where the pain no longer echoed. Grace interrupted, clapping her hands as she called out, "Everyone! A quick announcement." Lily blinked as her friend gestured toward her. "The artist behind Rainlight Woman is right here, our very own Lily Harper." Gasps, applause, camera flashes, her heart stumbled into disbelief. People turned toward her, smiling, clapping, congratulating. Ethan froze beside her, pride flickering across his face, followed by something deeper, admiration. Lily bowed her head slightly, her cheeks wet. She hadn't planned to cry. If that moment hit you hard, leave a red heart hash. Sometimes one little symbol says what our hearts can't. As the applause faded, Ethan whispered, "You found yourself again." She smiled through her tears. "No. I just stopped searching in the wrong places." He nodded slowly, then stepped back. "You deserve the world, Lily. I hope you never forget that again." "I won't," she said softly. He gave her one last look before disappearing into the crowd. And this time, she didn't watch him leave with sorrow. She watched him go like a chapter closing exactly when it should. When the gallery emptied, Lily stood alone before her painting. The light above it flickered once, then glowed steady. She touched the frame and whispered, "Thank you for listening." Outside, rain began again, soft, silver, forgiving. Her reflection in the glass door shimmered, half woman, half hope. Maybe this was what healing looked like, not erasing the past, but painting over it with something beautiful. The gallery night faded into memory, but something new had begun quietly inside her. Days turned to weeks, and Lily's life no longer felt like survival, it felt like creation. Orders came in for her art, emails from people saying her work made them feel seen. Every message reminded her that her pain had found a purpose beyond her own healing. One evening, as the last sunlight melted across her studio walls, she stood surrounded by half-finished canvases. Her hands were stained with paint, her hair tied up in a messy knot. A gentle knock came at the door. "Closed," she called, not looking up. But the knock came again, hesitant this time. She sighed, wiping her hands on a cloth, and opened the door. Ethan stood there. For a heartbeat, her world tilted. He looked different now, not in clothes or wealth, but in eyes. Softer, quieter, like someone who'd spent time learning how to listen. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice calm but guarded. "I didn't come to stay," he said. "I just needed to give you this." He handed her a small envelope. Inside was a newspaper clipping, an article titled "Rainlight Woman, the artist who painted resilience." Beneath it, a handwritten note, "You helped people believe again. Including me." Her throat tightened. "Ethan." He raised a hand gently. "You don't owe me anything. I just wanted to say that seeing your art, seeing who you became, it reminded me of the boy I was before pride ruined him. Lily stepped aside, motioning him in. You can come in for a minute. He entered, eyes scanning the studio walls. You turned pain into light, he murmured. I wish I'd known how to do that. You still can, she said quietly. But you have to stop carrying the past like it defines you. He smiled faintly. Maybe seeing you helped me start. For a moment, silence settled. Not awkward, not bitter, just full of words that no longer needed to be said. Lily poured 2 cups of tea. You know, she said softly, for a long time, I wanted you to hurt the way I did. But now I just want you to heal differently. He looked at her, his voice rough. Do you forgive me? She paused, meeting his gaze. Forgiveness isn't a moment, Ethan. It's a process. Some days I think I do. Other days I remember that night and still ache. He nodded slowly, eyes glistening. That's fair. Be honest, could you forgive after what they did? Type forgive if you could, or never if it would break you too deeply. A small smile tugged at her lips. But I am trying, she added. And maybe that's enough. They drank in silence, steam rising between them like fragile peace. After a while, Ethan stood. I'll go. You have a world to paint, and I have one to rebuild. Take care of it, she said. And yourself. He nodded, turning toward the door. But before leaving, he looked back once more. I used to think love was about holding on, he said. Now I think it's about letting the other person be free. Her heart softened. Then we finally understand each other. When the door closed, Lily stood for a long moment, staring at the space he'd left behind. Strangely, it didn't feel empty anymore. Outside, the evening air carried the scent of rain again, a quiet circle coming to its close. She walked to her easel and picked up a fresh canvas. The brush felt lighter in her hand, freer. This time, she painted a sunrise, soft oranges and golds spilling across a horizon of endless sky. No shadows, no figures. Just light. She whispered, for new beginnings. And somewhere far away, Ethan stood by the riverside, watching that same sunrise, whispering the same words. Nights grew quieter after that last visit. The kind of quiet that didn't ache anymore, it breathed. Lily poured herself into her work, teaching children at a small art center on weekends. Their laughter filled spaces that used to echo with loneliness. She found peace not in what she gained, but in what she gave. Still, some nights, when the rain whispered against her window, she caught herself wondering where Ethan was now. Was he still trying to make amends? Had he found something worth living for again? She never reached for her phone to ask, but the thought lingered like an unopened book on a shelf. One evening, as she was sorting through old boxes in her apartment, she found an envelope she didn't recognize. The handwriting was her own, faint and trembling. Inside was a letter addressed to Ethan, written months ago but never sent. Her chest tightened as she began to read. Ethan, I hated you for making me feel invisible. But I also thank you, because losing you forced me to see myself. You once told me love was about saving each other. Now I think love is about surviving, even when no one saves you. I don't know if I forgive you yet, but I forgive the girl who thought you were her forever. She stopped there, blinking through tears that came softly, like old grief saying goodbye. She smiled faintly, folding the letter again. She whispered to the quiet room, I think she finally did forgive you. The next morning, she walked to the park with the letter in her hand. The world was golden with sunrise, dew sparkling on every leaf. She sat by the lake and watched ripples stretch across the surface. Then, slowly, she tore the letter into small pieces and let the wind carry them away. For the first time in years, her heart didn't feel heavy. It felt empty, but in the peaceful way that makes space for new light. When she returned to her studio, she painted without a plan. Her brush danced in soft motions, blues, golds, and pale whites blending like memory fading into peace. Her phone buzzed. A message from Grace. Big news. The gallery wants to feature you internationally, Paris, New York, even Tokyo. They love your story. Lily laughed through her tears. Our story, she murmured. She sat down to write her response, then paused. Instead of replying, she opened her email and typed a new message, addressed to an unfamiliar name, Ethan Cole Foundation. She'd seen an article last week. Ethan had started a foundation that helped young artists from poor backgrounds. She remembered the quote under his photo, "Kindness doesn't erase the past, but it changes the future." Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, then typed slowly. "I saw what you built. It's good. Keep going." She hit send before she could change her mind. "If you believe love still wins, comment in. Let's fill this section with hope. Maybe someone scrolling right now needs to see it." Later that night, she received a reply. "Lily, I didn't expect to hear from you. Your words mean more than you know. I'm still learning, still trying. If my mistakes ever found a way to help someone else, maybe that's the closest thing to forgiveness I'll ever earn. E." Lily smiled, tears slipping down her cheeks. She whispered, "You already did." That night, she painted one last piece, a bridge across a quiet river under a pale moon. On the back, she wrote, "To everyone learning how to let go." The next day, that painting sold within hours. But Lily didn't care about the money or fame anymore. She just hoped it would hang somewhere lonely hearts could look at it and remember, pain is not the end of beauty, it's where it begins. A year later, the city skyline shimmered in the distance as Lily stood inside the grand glass hall of the International Art Museum. The place buzzed with quiet admiration. Critics, collectors, students, and dreamers all gathered to see the new exhibition titled Resilience, Stories Through Paint. Lily's section was near the center. Her works, Rainlight Woman, Bridge of Forgiveness, and The Sunrise We Shared, filled the space with color that seemed to breathe. Each painting told a chapter of her story without needing her voice. She wore a soft blue dress, hair tied loosely, a golden light from the skylight touching her face. For the first time, she didn't feel nervous. She felt seen, not as the waitress at someone's gala, but as a woman who had learned to rise. Grace squeezed her hand. "Proud of you doesn't even cover it." Lily smiled. "You're the reason I didn't quit when everything hurt." Grace chuckled. "No, sweetheart. You're the reason I still believe in people." They laughed softly, their joy quiet but deep. Suddenly, a man's voice spoke behind her. "You've come a long way, Lily Harper." She turned. Ethan stood there again, not as the man she remembered, but as someone changed by time and purpose. His foundation had grown, she'd read about it. The walls he once hid behind were gone. "I didn't know if you'd be here," he said, smiling faintly. "But I hoped you would." She studied him, his calm, his posture, the gentleness that didn't look rehearsed anymore. "You look different," she said. "So do you," he replied. "Happy suits you." "Thank you." He glanced around. "Your work, it's breathtaking. You turned your story into light. It made me think about how many people are still stuck in their darkness." Lily nodded, her voice soft. "We can't erase pain, Ethan. But we can paint over it with something beautiful." He smiled, eyes glistening. "You were always wiser than me." She looked at him, not with the ache of what was lost, but the peace of what was learned. "Maybe we both just grew up." They stood in silence as the crowd moved like waves around them. Then Ethan said, "There's something I wanted to tell you." Lily raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. "I found this on my desk a few weeks ago. I wrote it the night after you left the gala, but never sent it." He handed it to her. She hesitated, then opened it. "To the woman I failed. You deserved kindness, not cowardice. You deserved to be honored, not hidden. If the world remembers me at all, I want it to be because I once knew someone strong enough to forgive the unworthy." Lily's throat tightened, tears pricking her eyes. She folded the note gently. "I think you already became that man," she whispered. He shook his head. "No. You did. You gave me a reason to." She smiled softly, her heart warm but no longer heavy. Just then, a journalist approached with a camera. "Ms. Harper, could you stand beside your painting for a photo? It's for the cover feature." Lily glanced at Ethan, then back at the camera. "Of course," He stepped back, hands in his pockets, watching as she posed before Bridge of Forgiveness, the painting of two figures standing apart but connected by light. For a moment, their eyes met across that same invisible bridge. When the flash went off, it felt like a full circle closing gently. If this story moved you, don't scroll past quietly. Tap like, not for me, but for the soul who carried this pain and still stayed kind. One click can be your way of saying, I felt you. Later, after the crowd thinned and the lights dimmed, Ethan approached one last time. Goodbye, Lily. Goodbye, Ethan, she said, and meant it with peace. As he walked away, she didn't cry. She didn't ache. She just turned toward her paintings, the soft light wrapping around her shoulders like forgiveness itself. When she stepped outside, the city lights flickered like 1,000 tiny blessings. And in her heart, she whispered, this is what it means to heal. The night breeze carried the sound of distant laughter as Lily stepped out of the museum and into the quiet city streets. Street lights painted golden halos over the wet pavement, and the reflection of the gallery glimmered in the puddles like a memory made of light. She walked slowly, her heels clicking against the cobblestones, her heart unhurried. The world no longer felt too large or cruel, it felt like hers again. Every breath she took felt earned, like peace had waited its turn and finally found her. Across the street, a small group of art students stood pointing at the posters that bore her name. One of them whispered, she's the one who painted Rainlight Woman. Their eyes were full of admiration, but what touched Lily most was not their praise, it was their belief. 4 years, she'd been searching for that. Not fame, not forgiveness, but proof that her story meant something. That her pain had become someone else's hope. Grace joined her outside, wrapping a soft shawl around her shoulders. They'll be writing about you for weeks, she teased gently. Lily smiled. Then maybe they'll remember what really mattered. Grace tilted her head. Which is? That kindness doesn't need a stage, Lily said quietly. It just needs a heart that refuses to stop caring, even after it's been broken. They stood together under the stars, two women who had seen the world's sharp edges and still chosen gentleness. Later that night, back in her apartment, Lily poured tea and sat beside her window, the same one where she used to cry, used to pray, used to wonder if life would ever feel fair again. Now it just felt real. She opened her journal and began to write, not a letter this time, but a reflection. We spend so much time waiting for apologies that may never come. But the truth is, closure isn't given, it's created. Sometimes by forgiveness, sometimes by art, sometimes just by surviving another day. And that's enough. She closed the book and smiled at her reflection in the window, older, wiser, but still glowing softly with that same warmth she thought the world had taken. Her phone buzzed, another message from Ethan. Just 4 words, thank you for everything. She didn't reply. She didn't need to. The story had already ended where it was meant to, not with a reunion, but with peace. The rain began to fall again, gentle as a lullaby. She watched it slide down the glass and whispered, every drop finds its way home. Outside, the city lights blurred into watercolor streaks, a living painting. Somewhere, someone was probably standing in the rain, thinking about their own mistakes, their own healing, their own second chances. And maybe, just maybe, her story would find them too. Because every heartbreak carries a hidden seed, the choice to grow from it or to let it rot. She had chosen growth. And that choice, simple yet sacred, had painted her life brighter than she could ever imagine. The next morning, sunlight poured into her studio like gold. Children laughed outside the window of the art center across the street. Lily smiled as she picked up her brush. Today's canvas was blank, waiting, patient, just like life. She dipped her brush into soft yellow and whispered, for hope. Then, with a steady hand, she began to paint again. Somewhere in the stillness, it felt like the universe itself leaned closer, listening, smiling, at peace. And through that quiet, Lily's final thought rose like dawn breaking over the world. We can't always control what breaks us. But we can decide what we build from the pieces. And maybe that's what real love, real strength, truly means. Her story had begun in humiliation, but it ended in grace. And as her brush swept across the new canvas, light spilling across her hands, one truth lingered. She was never just a waitress. She was a woman who turned pain into art, and art into love. And that, more than anything, was her redemption.